Eyewitness News presents Newsmakers with your hosts Jane Ann Bugda and Andy Mahalchik.
Hello and welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Jane Ann Bugda along with Andy Mahalchik. We begin with a question. What do newsman John Stossel, Marilyn Monroe, Winston Churchill, and singer Mel Tillis all have in common? They all stutter. Today, we are taking a look at a local support group for stuttering, and we'll be highlighting the programs, services, and impressive research going on at Misericordia University. We have a lot to talk about, a fascinating subject for you today. I'll introduce you to our guests, and our discussion will begin when this edition of Newsmakers returns right after this. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Jane Ann Bugda along with Andy Mahalchik, unlocking the mysteries of speech. So we're talking about today with our guest. We are joined by Kyle Pelkey. He's a student at Misericordia University. Dr. Carrie Tellis, who's Associate Professor of Speech Language at Misericordia University, and Dr. Kathy Schuyler Scott, who's also with Misericordia University in the Speech Language Department. And we are talking about speech today because of this young man right here. Kyle appeared on PA Live, our sister show, and talked about the stuttering support group and an upcoming run and the work at Misericordia University. And we received a number of phone calls from people who stuttered and wanted to learn more. So we thought this was a perfect opportunity to sit down and talk about the work that's going on at Misericordia and about the stuttering support group. So we're glad that you're here with us today. We're going to be spreading a lot of information, helping a lot of people. So I think we want to begin by talking about stuttering. So when we hear that someone stutters, what is stuttering?
So stuttering is a communication disorder where the speaker has trouble getting sounds out. So they know exactly what they want to say, but the sounds might get stuck or repeated.
And what are some of the causes of stuttering? Is it emotional? Is it, physical, psychological? What causes it?
There's no research to support it being emotional or psychological. It is what we consider right now a multifactorial disorder, meaning that there are different factors that go into it. Some of them, in some cases, genetic, in some cases, neurological, but not meaning brain damage, not in that way, just a difference in wiring of the brain. Intelligence is the same as everyone else. But we just know that there are different factors that contribute to it in different amounts in different people.
Is there a difference between, and I think all of us have stuttered at one time or another for whatever reason, is there a difference between those who stutter once in a while because of maybe pressure or for whatever reason and those who chronically stutter? Is there a difference between the two?
Yes, absolutely. When someone has an actual communication disorder that we would talk about as stuttering, there are just different types of stuttering disfluency types that I'll let Dr. Schuyler Scott talk a little bit more about. But the occasional kind of stumbling over your words or repeating a word or saying isn't, I wouldn't characterize those people as a person who stutters. So if you want to talk a little bit more about kind of stuttering like disfluencies and how you kind of categorize the two?
Right, so we term stuttering like disfluencies more as repetitions, usually of parts of words, so maybe the first sound or syllable of a word, prolongations, which is where a sound might get stretched out, or a sound is blocked, where someone is struggling to make a sound, but that sound is not coming out. You might hear a little sound, but they're not able to move forward. That's different, as Dr. Carey said, than if someone is just maybe saying or let me think, or just kind of repeating as they're trying to get their thoughts together.
And Kyle, you've been very vocal about telling people about your own personal struggles and with stuttering. Tell us a little bit about what it is for a person to stutter.
Yeah, so I've actually stuttered my whole life since I can remember, really. I think it was clinically diagnosed when I was entering kindergarten, which is actually when stuttering is most commonly noticed and diagnosed. And I've been through speech therapy, basically my whole life. I didn't always get the best speech therapy until I got here to Misericordia. It does come with a lot of emotional struggles, and just you have to go through situations that most other people don't necessarily need to, and with that comes a lot of stored feelings that nobody really wants to talk about or discuss. So with that, how do you deal with those? Who do you speak to about those things? Do you speak to your mom and dad about it? Well, they don't stutter, so they may not understand. So how do you go about that? And we've done a lot at the school to, I think, help that aspect of stuttering.
And I think it's interesting that you had mentioned that you were younger when you started to stutter, and that's where it starts. If parents at home are noticing that their children are starting, what should they be looking for, and what should they be doing?
So they should be looking, because children can be just disfluent as they're putting their words together and learning language. That may not be stuttering, but if they're seeing children repeat more and more parts of words, or getting frustrated because they can't get words out, or avoiding communication, then that might be something to consult with a speech language pathologist who can help them separate out, is this normal for their age, or is this something that would require further treatment?
Kyle, when did you realize you had an issue or a challenge? I mean, when did you become aware of there's something different about the way I speak?
Yeah, it's not like it's one specific moment. It's kind of a thing where it's over time. What I think is interesting is I've observed this also. I think the younger that you are, so maybe 8, 9, even 10 years old, with myself this was true as well, you don't really care, I think, because nobody else really cares. So when you're at school, and if you stutter, right, if you have a bump in your speech at that age, nobody really either notices or cares, especially your peers. So it was when I got older, into like middle school and then high school, is when you really start to, it affects you, and you have that anxiety about it. You get that nervousness about it, in my case. So I think that's really the time when it started, with me anyways, to really be an issue. And,
Did you know anybody else who stuttered at that time?
I had never met a person who stutters until I started with the support group that we have here.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So
It's amazing.
And a lot of times I thought I was the only one who stuttered, which a lot of people who stutter have those thoughts, because it's not something that you really see every day or notice. And I think a lot of times people who stutter may be reluctant to speak and to be in situations where they need to speak. So I think that's another reason why you may not always hear about it.
And it may hold people back in life too. Someone who's older, that may be in their 30s or 40s, who maybe don't realize now that there are groups, support groups, and that to help you through this, and people to talk to.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your support group. The support group it's at Misericordia University. Tell us a little bit about the support group. Who is it open to?
So our group, which I've actually been involved with now for over 3 years, is open to anyone and everyone. We're open to people who stutter. We're open to anybody who has an interest in stuttering. We do get a lot of speech language pathologists at the group who want to learn about stuttering and learn about the underlying emotions, attitudes that people who stutter have. Most of our members do stutter themselves, but we've had people, elderly in their 80s, and we've had as young, I think our youngest member was 8 or 9 years old. So it's definitely a wide range of the spectrum of ages that we do get at our group.
I'm interested. We were talking before we came on air about you were saying some very senior folks were in there, 75, 80 years old. What motivated them to come forward after all these years? I mean, I would think at that point you'd say, I've dealt with it all my life, why deal with it now? Or do you think that's why they came forward?
With those people that I've encountered anyways, they said, well, maybe I could be an inspiration to somebody else, at the group who may not do something or may not choose the job where they need to speak or may not go into a speaking situation, whatever it may be, because they stutter. So what I found is that a lot of the older members that we have in our group, that's why they're there mostly to kind of give hope and inspiration to the younger members. That's what I found.
Interesting.
That is interesting. And if someone is older, is there a way that they can help do something to help correct their stutter? What should someone do if they're, say, maybe out of school now and don't have resources in school to help them? What can they do? Someone in their 30s, 40s, and beyond?
They can still seek therapy. It's really never too late. We had someone as old as 70 recently come in and had never learned strategies, and we can help them with strategies to manage their stuttering. So.
You're mentioning strategy. Just if you can, a quick therapy here. Like, what would you tell folks? I mean, when you say strategy, and do you try and concentrate on a vowel or a word that's coming up that you may have trouble with? I mean, how does that work?
I think
just a little thumbnail sketch.
Yeah, it would be more complex than you could sum up in a sentence or two, but just to say a lot of the focus of the strategy is changing the timing and tension of the speech. So it's we teach them different techniques so that they can start sounds easier and not. The inclination is, if your sounds are stuck, is to really try to fight against it. And the more you fight stuttering, it fights you harder. So we teach them easier ways to approach their speech.
Almost like a roadmap.
Yeah.
A verbal roadmap.
Yeah, one that's helped me the most, and it's not one specific strategy or technique. It's usually a lot of things, an integration of a lot of things. But with me, I'm actually still in speech therapy now at this school, and it's helped me so much over the years. One thing that I have never heard of is under the stuttering modification. It's called therapy, and that's called pseudo-stuttering. So a lot of times people who stutter have a lot of tension, whether it be in their neck, their chest, or their face when they stutter. So this strategy is just, if I were to say my name like this, Kyle, and stutter when I say my name, I could instead pseudo or fake stutter and say Kyle. So it relieves all of the facial and neck tension that you have. Once you get that, then you could kind of break it down even further and say Kyle, Kyle, to kind of break down initially all that facial and neck tension that I had. That's one example that's really helped me, that I think we do an excellent job at the school to provide excellent therapy like we do.
I think it's so interesting, and I think that by today's show, I think maybe we are reaching out to a lot of people who might not realize that the services and the programs that you have at Misericordia University. And I want to talk a little bit about that. The Speech Language Center helps a lot of people. Tell us a little bit about the center that maybe people don't realize is right here in our own backyard.
So the Speech Language Hearing Center at Misericordia University is a center that services really everyone in northeastern Pennsylvania. It's open to anybody, but we do have people come from Allentown area, Harrisburg, New Jersey, down in Philadelphia, and it really services anyone with a speech, language, communication, swallowing, voice issue. So anything that really relates to
and that's people
the
who
speech
have
mechanism.
strokes,
Anyone
autism.
who has, a person who has stroke, anyone with autism, anyone with a voice disorder, people who clutter, which is another type of fluency disorder, because stuttering is a type of fluency disorder. People with swallowing issues, anyone with a brain injury that was had an accident. You mentioned stroke, anything like that. So communication-related issues, speech-related issues, obviously things that probably typically people wouldn't understand a speech pathologist does, working on articulation of like different sounds. So really it spans the age range and anything that related to communication.
And do you have to be referred there, or can you?
No, you can self-refer. So if we're talking about stuttering today, and if you're a person who stutters and you believe that you could benefit from treatment, you could give the center a call and say, I'd like to come in and have an evaluation. You can be referred by a physician, and that oftentimes does happen. We do have clients that are referred, but you do not. You could be self-referred.
Well, we are going to take a quick break. Information that you're learning today can be found on pahomepage.com or under the Newsmakers link. You are watching Newsmakers. We are a proud recipient of 2 Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasting's awards for excellence in public affairs programming. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Newsmakers. Jane Ann Bugda along with Andy Mahalchik, and I want to read you a quote. This quote is from the Stuttering Foundation of America, from Jane Frazier, the president. The team at Misericordia has one of the most active groups in the country for people who stutter. We love to see others emulate the wonderful work they've done for their local community. What a nice tribute to your program. We are talking today to Kyle Pelkey, Dr. Carrie Tellis, and Dr. Kathy Scaler-Scott from Misericordia University. We're talking about the Stuttering Support Group. We're talking about speech problems that people have. We're talking about their services and programs. And it's a fascinating conversation. And Andy, you wanted to...
About the research. I mean, we talk about the causes, or what's suspected to cause it and how you deal with it. What is taking place at the university as far as answering those questions, the research angle, the research perspective?
Sure. We're doing a tremendous amount of research. I always say Misericordia is a small school doing big things. We used to go to conferences and they'd say, Misericordia who? And now they're like, Misericordia. And Kyle's actually involved with one of groundbreaking type of research we're doing called near-infrared spectroscopy, or NIRS. And we're looking at oxygenated hemoglobin levels in the brain to find out different areas that the brain becomes active during certain speech tasks. Some of the research that Kyle's involved in is under the guidance of Dr. Glenn Tellis, who is also a board-certified fluency specialist at Misericordia. They're looking at normally fluent speakers and how their brain responds to different speech tasks, and they're very interested in looking at people who stutter and to see if their brain responds differently to different speech tasks, with the hope to try to figure out different strategies and different treatments that might be able to be used to effectively treat stuttering.
And one thing with our research that we've actually found is that in speaking tasks, so whether it's reading out loud or whether it's speaking about a topic, is that people who stutter tend to have more activation in their brain in their right hemisphere as opposed to typically fluent speakers. So we don't really know exactly the origins of that, why that's happening neurologically, but through our research with near-infrared spectroscopy, we are able to observe the differences in activation in a person who stutters in their brain and a typically fluent speaker.
And I know we did a story on this, and we see the people wearing the caps. What? Tell us a little bit about those caps. That's
Sure.
monitoring.
Yeah, that cap right there you're looking at has sources and detectors, and the sources emit near-infrared light. And it penetrates through the scalp to the surface of the brain, and then the detectors receive the information, and it's measuring oxygenated hemoglobin and deoxygenated hemoglobin to get a measure called the hemodynamic response, which tells us what part of the brain is active and to the magnitude of its activation. And you can see her reading there in that clip right there. So that's her prompted to do a speech task.
And this research where is it being seen? I know we did a story on it, which we'll have on PA homepage.
Sure. I mean, Dr. Glenn Tellis and I just published in NEARS News about it in related to speech. So Dr. Tellis is doing some research on stuttering. My research is focused on individuals who have voice disorders, and we actually were one of the first to show a learning effect with a novel voice strategy that we teach at Misericordia, and we integrate into therapy. So it's it can really span a lot of different disorder types, and those are two that we're working on.
And go ahead.
Sorry, Jen. People are looking for a magic pill. Get it done yesterday. Take this shot, take that medication or whatever, and go to sleep. And you wake up and everything's fine. No such thing with this challenge, is there? There's no really medication or a medical solution to it. I mean, chemistry at this point, a chemical solution.
Right. No. I mean, even the studies that have been done, they are looking into some medications, but even those, the conclusions right now are that it always has to be combined with therapy. So it's really more of, it's no magic bullet, it's more just learning to manage stuttering, and I'm sure Kyle can attest to that it's not a slow it's not a fast process. It's a
with especially when I was in high school, and even now, years ago, when I gave presentations or needed to speak in a situation like this, it would be a very big challenge, where even to get out one word when you're in a situation like this would be difficult. But with the hard work of therapy, and it's not one session, it's not 2 sessions, it's months and months of training and hard work, you really can have those improvements. But I think you need to be willing to do the work and put the work in. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So it's up to you, really. It's a thing where, how bad do you want to improve? And if you do, then putting in the work in therapy will make a difference.
And I do want to ask you about this. I know we talked about it a little bit, and as we were passing my desk, Dr. Kathy mentioned cluttering, and I thought that she meant my desk, but what is cluttering?
It's a communication disorder, fluency disorder, where the main symptom that you'll see is that the person sounds really fast, the speaker sounds really fast, and they'll get a lot of requests from their listener to, what did you say? I didn't understand you. So it's another type of fluency disorder that is lesser known. A lot of people don't know that this is the disorder that they have, but they just know that people are saying, hey, I can't understand you. So it's another disorder that we can treat at our clinic.
And what are some of the common myths that are associated with stuttering or speech disorders?
One big one is that someone who stutters can't go into an occupation where that involves a lot of speaking, that their intellect is any different than anyone else's, that it's caused by emotional factors. And I think another big one is that people's inclination to try to help people who stutter is to say, slow down, take a deep breath, and think about what you want to say. And all of those things are not usually so helpful. I think Kyle would agree.
I know, I've had that personally said to me, and it's a thing where, okay, I'm trying to slow down, I'm trying to take a deep breath, and I'm not doing this on purpose,
Right.
So I just don't think a lot of people out there, listeners, know that. And I think, like you mentioned, Dr. Scott, there are a lot of myths. Maybe a person who stutters isn't as smart as somebody else. None of those are true.
Right.
So I think educating people about what is stuttering and what exactly is it is a big help.
I think that's important, and I think that's what we're doing today, hopefully, that we're educating people about that. And you mentioned, and we have about 2.5 minutes left, there are a lot of celebrities that we had talked about and that have a stutter. So let's talk a little bit about, so people know they're not alone. And I know Andy and Kyle were mentioning who the...
Darren Sproles, a football player.
We almost had a sports show here for a
Darren
moment.
Sproles.
A lot of people know
Expound
him.
on that, Kyle.
So
who is Darren Sproles, and what does he do to help bring awareness to this issue?
he's a running back right now, and I believe he's still with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he stutters himself. I know that he's involved with the Stuttering Association of America, and he's done a lot of work to just spread the word about stuttering and let people know that, you know, a lot of info about what exactly it is, and then as a listener what you can do. So.
And we have about a minute and a half left. I do want to remind everyone about the support group. They meet at Misericordia University, open to anyone of any age. We have the information that'll be on pahomepage.com. We also want to remind everyone about the Speech and Language Hearing Center at Misericordia University, also open to everyone, if not only in our area, but across the nation, anyone who needs help. And we do have a
Pennsylvania.
yeah, right across Pennsylvania. We want to thank you, Kyle, for joining us today and sharing your story. You are an inspiration to a lot of people, and I think you should be very proud of yourself. Dr. Carey and Dr. Kathy, we want to thank you too for your hard work and your research. Again, information on today's program can be found on pahomepage.com or under the Newsmakers link. For Andy Michalczyk and everyone behind the scenes, I'm Jane Ann Bugda. We want to thank you for making Newsmakers part of your day, and check out our information there on pahomepage.com.